Hey everybody. So yeah, last time I went over like how to do a partial commit. I think that is a huge time saving, and I often use it whenever like I'm going to like I let's say I have a bunch of code that is going to set me up for the next iteration of what I'm trying to do. I'll I'll do a partial commit, or sometimes I have a lot of like debugging code, console logs and stuff that I want to use. And like I said, the one main thing you want to avoid is committing a version that doesn't work. That could make in the future, if you're trying to figure out some like where a problem started, it's kind of nice to be able to just roll back commit by commit and then test. And that's very difficult to do if one of the commits actually doesn't compile. Um, but anyways, then at the end, I kind of mentioned that this latest changes that I had made caused a couple of console log errors to show up, and I kind of wanted to go over exactly how to fix those console log errors because it's real pain in the butt. And like I'm always like it always cracks me up. I'll go to a place where they're like, we're gonna have 90% unit test coverage and all this stuff and like this intensely crazy linting and like they're looking at like literally how every space in the code is and all that, and then you go to the site to the page itself and you look in the console and there's thousands of console log errors, and it's just like, come on guys, like where a space, if someone has a double space or a space at the end of a line, is not nearly as important as if there's console log errors. And not that I'm saying that console log errors are the most important thing in the world, but they are definitely more important than white space in a file. But anyways, yeah, that's just me being a grumpy old man. Let me just let's get productive. Get productive. All right, so basically, I have staged some staged code. I mean, some stashed code that fixes this issue. So basically, I have the application running. So if I say git stash and pop, that will take what I have stashed out of the stash, and I'll have the code. And now, if I go into uh, the console log, error is gone. Um, so so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm just going to comment out. It's just a little easier. The changes that I made to fix, because actually, as soon as you fix one of the console log errors, another console log error presents itself. So basically, let's see if that work. All right, it works. Yeah, so let's see, Control I, and then I think this one only happens when you go to create a camera that's in. Yeah, I don't know exactly how to. But so we got rid of this change here, which basically all I'm doing is saying don't try to render this page until the admin properties component.html. Um, yeah, don't try to render this page unless there's the table in this page, unless we actually have some data. Um, and then let's see, 3 service. Let me just comment that one out. And I'm basically just hitting control and forward slash, and that automatically does that. All right, so control I. All right, so basically that is what caused the signal error to show up, right? We say writing to signals is not allowed in computed or effect by default. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what this means. Like I can't. I'm sure like this is when you read these things and they don't make sense. A lot of times that's a pretty good indicator that like that you have a bunch of missing knowledge in your understanding of things, because this makes no sense to me whatsoever. And then like a lot of times you might be tempted to like click like at the first at the top and see and then like maybe put a break there and reload. But the problem is typically these lines that are sort of in the core code get called all kinds of times. Um, both, and you can't. It's very difficult to determine which time it got called that it was actually problematic. So typically, what I'll do is I'll kind of skip. So this is in the core. This is in signals. Signals core, and then I see okay, I have an error in prune animation pairs. This is what's setting off the error. And then it makes sense to kind of go from the bottom. Okay, so this was signal. So some kind of signal kicked off this code. Then it went to the core, everything was fine. It got to the toolbox component .js. So we can click on line 33. So we know that something's happening when we set up the camera. It's breaking. So we come back over to the console and we go. So and then like the thing is sometimes this would be the problem, but just calling a method probably isn't going to, like, sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't work, right? Like this issue isn't causing long-term problems. Like if I click in here and I edit and I mark this as animated and then I go back, like everything's fine and I'm not getting any new things. So for some reason at some point when I call setup camera, things are just going haywire. So let's move up the tree to 3JS service. Okay, so all this is another call to prune animation pairs, and then let's go into the 3J service, and apparently whenever we call this function, we're calling this signal and something is going wrong. So usually my first instinct is that there's like the signals is getting like maybe getting a null or getting something weird that it's not happy about publishing. So, and this is kind of new because what makes this different than previous is that animation, that the camera isn't set up by the user. So all kinds of things happen and things seem to settle out by the time the user starts interacting with the application. But when we create a camera, the camera happens, the camera is created before any of, well, we don't know exactly what the timing of all these things are. So, but anyway, so if we just undo, so now let's just undo this and just say, hey, don't prune anything. There's no point to pruning anything if there's no, if there aren't, like, why would we prune it if there are no animation pairs yet? And honestly, like this couldn't have even been called before without it existing, because for meshes and lights, the user would be creating it and then the pruning happens. But in this case, the user hasn't interacted yet. So anyways, like I honestly cannot figure out exactly why this fixes it, but it does. And there's nothing more frustrating, I will admit. Oh, okay, I did that in that. And then that's like another thing is I get kind of confused because that looks the same. That looks awful. The debugger looks an awful lot like the actual code. So, I mean, yeah, like the VS code. So now we go in here and go to the console. No, there's no bug. So then I was seeing another one, and I'm not exactly sure how to reproduce it. Let me see if I can. Was it in here? No. In here. No. Two. Yeah. Okay. So we went to make a change, and it was very upset. Yeah, I don't know exactly, again, and that's one of the most frustrating things about working with these console log issues is you often don't, once you have them fixed, you don't really understand what the fix was. But let's just undo this and undo this. And then go through the same thing, and hopefully the problem, I'm going to pause this. This should take just a little bit longer. Make the change. Yeah. So now the problem's gone. So something about in the animation properties over here, when we went to go make this change, and it drew stuff out, we ended up getting an error. Um, and it just makes sense to not render the table at all if the filtered if the filtered table data doesn't exist. Why would you render the table? So those are sort of some quick fixes that will quite often fix these issues. It is not a satisfying experience, I will admit, because at the end, you know, you don't you think you can kind of create a story um, that in your mind that kind of makes these things a little easier to deal with, but you obviously don't understand what's happening under the table, under the behind the scenes with the mat tables. That's the one of them. And then you don't understand what's happening behind the scenes with the signals. So you don't really understand why these things are broken. And then a lot of times these sort of things, when you do upgrades, will just magically disappear. Like maybe it's a problem within the signals code API or core code. Maybe it's a problem within the template engine. Uh, it could be those things, and then they fix it, and then vice versa. Maybe they're missing something, some kind of problem that they would like to catch in the console logs, and those things, when you do an upgrade, suddenly appear. So, anyways, I do think that it was important to go over that. I know that, I know it's, like I said, not super satisfying, because we don't really understand why these bugs were being created. We just added some code, and now the console logs are gone. The console logs didn't really matter, right? Those console log errors didn't really matter because they were sort of result fixing themselves, so like, and that tells me that there's some sort of timing issue, like something is timed differently with the cameras than it was with the meshes and the lights. So suddenly we got a new error. Something is timed differently in the tables, and something is timed differently in the signals than we were. And then so we just had to add some extra protective code to prevent that console log from happening. And these generally do lead to bigger problems. Um, that's generally a good idea to fix those things anyways and get them worked. And maybe like in your subconscious or in your dream or something like that, you'll kind of, it's like more evidence, more stuff to help you learn stuff. Anyways, I think it's important to fix those things. Happy coding, guys. Next time, I think I'm hoping we'll be able to finish up the animations for the cameras along the x-axis. Anyways, happy coding, everybody. Bye.